Go Blue and welcome back. And in this one, I want to do something a little different that I haven't done yet. I want to look at the five players on this roster right now coming back from last year's team who I think are going to be the biggest integral parts of this 2026 Michigan team going forward. And these are the five guys who, they all are good players. They all have high ceilings, but there's plenty of things for them to work on. And so I want to focus in on the player improvements specifically of these five players so that Michigan can maximize their capabilities, maximize their opportunities, and potentially and hopefully win 10 games in 2026. So, with the first name I'm going to put up on the screen, it's going to be Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall is a power back mainly. It really tells you what kind of player he was for Michigan this past season. To not start the season as the starter and for the first few games, not even get that many touches. He didn't really become the full time starter until almost halfway through the season, and yet he still ended the year with over 1,000, I believe. He is as true blue a Michigan running back as you can get. But where does he need to improve? In my estimation, Jordan Marshall needs to improve in three primary categories. One is pass protection as a blocker, one is pass catching out of the backfield, and the other one is simply having better elusiveness and fast twitch agility. He's not an agile running back more as he is a power back. And I know that we're bringing back Cuzdall. I know we're bringing in Savion Hyder. I know we have these guys, Micah Kaapanya. But the thing with Jordan Marshall, too, is that his style of play makes it a little bit harder to stay healthy as well. I think if he were to become a little bit more agile, be a little bit more quicker, and be a little more elusive, kind of like Justice Haynes, if he can kind of hone into that Justice Haynes style a little bit, I think it would actually help his long term health as well, not just his performance on the field. Pass protection, uh, he every running back, in my opinion, needs to be able to stand there in the pocket with the quarterback and pick up a blitz. They have to be able to. I did not see that from him on film very well. I think he struggled with it, and I think that it would behoove him to do that because Michigan is, they're a run heavy and run first offense, but if you don't block, you don't get the rock. It's as simple as that. I know that's more of a wide receiver thing traditionally, but you want to make the sentiment the same. You don't want to give any guys any like breaks or exceptions or anything like that. But he does need to be better in pass pro, especially if the offensive line struggles at all. You want to make sure Bryce has as much time as possible. Last thing is pass catching. Uh, One of the best things to do with a young quarterback that you're still developing is to give him high percentage completions, give him easy throws, easy routes. And best way to do that, honestly, is to just check it down and throw it to running backs as much as possible. But Jordan Marshall was not really much of a receiving back at all. And I don't see Bryson Cudsdall being that either. So I think that somebody's going to have to step up, and I would love for it to be Jordan Marshall because I think that if you just get him into open space, he's going to be really dangerous. But I do think that that is an area that he does need to improve on. I'm going to go into the interior defensive line, and it's Eno Etta. Why do I have Eno Etta here specifically? He is one of the better returning defensive linemen. He already has been in this system. He already has been on this team. He knows the culture. He knows all this stuff. I think that he's going to be a starter, and I think that he's going to have to step up because the interior defensive line of Michigan struggled mightily. They were not very good this year. They had a lot of high expectations and did not meet it whatsoever. So where does Eno Etta need to improve? Leverage, staying in his gap, and being more explosive at the point of attack. He gets lost at times. He gets easily knocked off his spot when being engaged by a lineman, and that kind of interrupts his gap integrity as a defensive tackle. He needs to find a way to anchor himself more and stay in there in his gap because that's going to make it extremely difficult for other teams to run, especially up the middle, up that A gap, B gap, because he's going to be inside. He's going to move around the line a little bit. He's not always going to be like a nose or like a three technique or anything like that. So gap integrity and staying anchored, his leverage, he's upright too much. And I think it's easier for linemen to kind of get underneath and use their leverage against him. But low man wins in football. His leverage is lacking a bit. He needs to stay lower. He needs to win that leverage battle, and it's gonna make it a lot harder on guards that he's going up against. And the last point was just being more explosive at the point of attack. Be faster off the ball, be quicker on the inline, things like that. If he can combine getting a quicker get off and having better leverage and staying in his gap, he's basically, you know, Kenneth Grant 2.0, but just way less heavy. You know what I mean? So I like those areas of improvement. I think if he can hone in on those, I think he's going to be a really good defensive tackle for us this season. Let's go to a corner, and that's Jair Hill. Jair is the best perimeter corner that we have, and getting him back was a really big deal. So I'm really happy to have him back. But with him, to me, tackling has been an issue. And we saw especially in the USC game, the tackling was absolutely horrendous and did not seem like Michigan football. And I think a big part of that tackling issue that he has is my other thing that he needs to improve on, and that's his size and strength. He's only 185 pounds. You know, that's not like crazy skinny for a defensive back, but at the same time, I would like him to get closer to like 195, if we're being honest, because he's about 6'1", so he's not short. I think that if you can just get some size on him, some strength on him, and get him into the conditioning program, then I think it's going to make the tackling automatically a little bit better. And that's really, really necessary, because if your DNs and your outside linebackers, if they lose contain and you got guys running on the outside kind of in free space, you want your DBs to be able to tackle in space. And he did not do a great job of that. The other thing that I noticed was improving on his reaction time to things like double moves and kind of elaborate route concepts, and being less aggressive in coverage in order to stay on track. You hear being less aggressive, and it might have a negative connotation in football, but aggressiveness can also draw penalties. Aggressiveness can also make you, just undisciplined in what you're doing. I just think that aggressive nature he has lends itself to be a little bit more on the negative side at times. He's gonna go up against most teams' number one receiver on any given Saturday. So I think for him to work on the instinctual side of it more, and then just try to stay on track and try not to fall victim to these double moves and weird routes that some of these guys are running now with the innovation on offense. So those would be the three primary things I'm looking for at Jair Hill. And we're going to need him, because we're only going to be going up against gauntlet wide receiving cores going forward. And I like him. I like Zeke Berry coming back, and Smith Snowden in the slot is going to be a good defensive back group. But these guys can get cooked too. So I don't want to get my hopes up too much, but those are the things I noticed from him. You got to be less aggressive. You got to just be a little bit more instinctual, and you got to put some size on. I don't like 185 for a 6'1" perimeter corner. I'm going to go with offensive tackle Evan Link here as my other name. Evan has a lot of versatility on the line. Most of the linemen on this team have a lot of inside, outside, guard, tackle, center versatility, and it's really nice because it gives you options, and it kind of gives you the leeway to put just your 5 best linemen on the field at a time and just kind of rearrange them. I'm still of the opinion that Evan Link is more of a guard, but for this purpose, I have him listed as a tackle because that's where Michigan has had him most of the time. Uh, Quicker feet, overall pass protection technique, and faster hands to attack rushers from the snap. If you can combine fast hands with quick feet and maintain your leverage, you're going to the league. You're going to be a starter. You're going to be all these things. There's not going to be much negative tape on you in that regard. Evan, though, he's big, he's strong, he's a great leader, but he does need to have some quicker feet, and his overall pass protection technique was definitely lacking this season. So, I'm surprised that Sharon Moore didn't develop him a little bit more in that regard, considering Sharon was a lineman himself. But I'm gonna hold off hope and just say that this incoming coaching staff that we got is gonna do what they gotta do to coach him up. He's a really smart kid. He's a good kid. I don't see any reason why he won't be coached up in these things. These are all things that are super easy for a good high level coach to hone in on, because you wouldn't be playing starting tackle for a Big Ten school if you didn't have natural ability. So I do think that edge rushers get the better of him at the point of attack and forces him to have to try to adjust on the fly. And when you're already not that quick, doing that's going to be extremely difficult. He's a much, much better run blocker for that reason, because when you're run blocking, you can kind of engage at the line and then just push back the defender. Where in pass protection, you got your initial step back, and you're kind of going backwards as you're picking up these blocks. So I definitely think he should be on the interior. I just think it fits his style better. So, but if they're going to insist on keeping him a tackle, he's got to get a quicker get off at the point of attack. He's got to have quicker feet. It's imperative. And lastly, the name that nobody is surprised about, it's Bryce. I love Bryce's ceiling. I love his upside. I love his potential. And but he regressed so noticeably across the season. I don't know how he regressed so much, but he did. A lot of that was confidence with the system. So don't get twisted. I'm not saying that Bryce is lacking confidence in general. In fact, I think the kid's pretty prideful in himself. But I do think that having overall confidence in the system is going to be massive for him. He just has to have a better post-snap vision in general. I think when he gets the ball and he sees things develop, he doesn't pick it up quite quick enough, and it really messes him up. And it forces him to kind of run around like a chicken with his head cut off and, try to do things on the fly when it's not always necessary, right? A lot of times with young quarterbacks, the protection's actually not terrible, and he could do something with it, but he panics. Pair post-snap vision, reading the defense as the play is developing is going to be really big for him. And I like Kyle Whittingham's history with helping out develop quarterbacks. I know he's a defensive coach by trade, but the quarterbacks on Utah's rosters have not been bad quarterbacks at all. He's surrounded his quarterbacks with the right guys. So I'm definitely looking forward to that part of it at least. Get rid of the ball, man. One of the things that he did throughout the end of the season that really irritated me was the fact that he just held onto the ball for so long. And he took so many unnecessary sacks. Well, I'm just like, dude, just throw it out of bounds. And he just wasn't doing it. So it seems like such a simple thing for a quarterback to do, but maybe I'm the ignorant one. Maybe it's not quite as simple as people say, but that's absolutely something he needs to work on. So his post-snap vision, getting rid of the ball and knowing when to take sacks, knowing when to throw it out of bounds, and just developing that overall confidence in the system. because it's now going to be your second system within 2 years. So just embrace it, learn, get as confident as possible early on. And I think this coaching staff's going to do a better job at getting them ready. So those are my 5 names. Those are my 5 Wolverines who I think are going to be the most impactful going forward for this team's success in 2026. Tell me what you guys think down below. Let's have a conversation. If you like the content, consider subscribing. I really appreciate it. And go Blue.